Chapter 5.
Ginny dresses up for the date and Harry thinks she looks beautiful, even if her practice ran overtime and she arrived half an hour late. He orders an oak-aged rum. Ginny opts for a glass of Riesling. "You look amazing," Harry says, and Ginny smiles. "Thanks," she says. Practice ran overtime. The scout left after Saturday's game without a word, which was a little disappointing. Maybe next match, though. Pearson's been scouted before. "Oh, thank you," Ginny says as a waiter places her glass of wine on the table. Harry accepts his glass with a nod and takes an appreciative sip. Anyway, the wind conditions weren't too good on Saturday's match, and Harry listens to Ginny speak. He's always liked her passion for things, he thinks. It's one of the first things he loved about her. When they were in the midst of the war and she was so full of fiery energy, her eyes bright and her hands steady as she lifted her wand. She never looked as beautiful as she did during the battle, he thinks, with her dirt-smudged face and torn robes, when her strength and spirit shone brighter than ever. He wonders if he'll ever see that level of passion again. "Let's not talk about work tonight," Harry says suddenly, interrupting Ginny's description of Saturday's match. "Let's talk about other things." "Oh!" Ginny pauses and looks about the restaurant, as if searching for a conversation topic. "It's interesting, isn't it, a Muggle restaurant? I was about to tap my wand on the menu items to order them. Nearly forgot. The view's nice, isn't it? I wish we'd been able to afford an apartment in central London." "I'm sorry, I know you always wanted." "Oh, that wasn't a criticism," Ginny says quickly. "I was just saying, that's all. I don't think the minister himself could afford those apartments. But if I make the English national team, who knows? At our next game, it might be—" "Oh, I'm talking about work again." She laughs. But soon enough, her laugh dwindles into silence, and Harry, thinking of several things to say, but dismissing them all as work-related, desperately grabs at the first alternate topic that pops into his head. "Do you remember the battle?" Ginny tenses. "It's a little hard to forget, Harry. Still, you were brilliant." "I remember Fred's funeral," Ginny says distantly, evidently not hearing him. "George still can't produce a Patronus," Mum says, and she doesn't think he will ever again. Harry stares down at his glass of rum, then takes a long drink of it. The waiter appears beside the table and Harry is almost relieved to see him. "I'll have the Cornish lamb and another glass of the Appleton estate," he says quickly. Ginny orders the roasted monkfish and a refill, too. The waiter disappears again, taking the menus with him. "We'll be finishing the borough preliminaries soon," Ginny says, breaking the silence. Harry doesn't point out that it's work-related. He listens as she speaks of the upcoming season, her guesses at how the season will finish, and a light criticism of the performance of her favorite team, the Kenmare Kestrels. "I know it's rather disloyal. I should have an English team, really, but the techniques this seeker uses are brilliant and very daring. The Chasers are working on this new formation too, and I wouldn't mind practicing it. I should bring it up with Gwen." Harry leans back slightly as the waiter places another glass of rum in front of him, waiting until he's gone away again before lifting the glass and taking a long sip. They receive a reprieve when their meals arrive, at least, and can occupy themselves with eating. Ginny orders another glass of wine and Harry tries a 12-year whiskey, then follows it with Scottish single malt. The waiter probably considers him an alcoholic, Harry thinks, and by the end of the meal he's delightfully fuzzy-headed and only half listening to Ginny's Quidditch strategies. Having had too much to drink to trust his disapparating skills, Harry flags a passing taxi to take him and Ginny home. Ginny seems to enjoy the trip, finding it rather amusing when Harry has to run to the apartment and frantically search for his cache of Muggle money to pay the driver. "That was nice," Ginny says afterwards when they're both preparing for bed. "Did you enjoy it, Harry?" "Did you hear me, Draco? I'm asking if you're happy." "Yeah," Harry says, staring at the wall opposite. "There's nothing on it. Only whiteness. A blank canvas." "Good," Ginny says, slipping beneath the covers and turning off her lamp. Harry sleeps restlessly that night. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Perhaps it's the driving lessons, but a week later Harry finds himself dreaming of a car. Draco's car. The memory, he thinks. Dreaming of the memories again. He's sitting in the back, with Astoria in the passenger seat and Draco driving. They're beside the river, nighttime, and Harry wants to wind down the window and breathe in the sky, the stars, the water, the land with the endless road rolling across it like a tar-streaked ribbon. You don't know what you want, Draco, Astoria is saying. Draco's eyes flick up to the rear vision mirror, meeting Harry's gaze. No, I don't, he says. There's a lull in silence and Harry realizes Astoria has fallen asleep. The memory should have ended. He glances away from her, then looks up and freezes. Draco's eyes, reflected in the rear vision mirror, are locked on his. Draco speaks. We could go anywhere. He's not talking to you, he's talking to Astoria. He's not looking at you, he's looking through you. Anywhere? Harry repeats, just to make sure Draco can't hear him. Draco smiles slightly, his gaze returning to the road ahead. Anywhere. Harry's heart quickens. Let's go to where you are. Why? I don't know where you are, Harry says, his mouth dry. I'm trying to find you. That's strange, Draco says, because I'm looking for you. This is important somehow. Like a fading voice, like a closing door, like the lights of a train fading into the distance. Like a circle, Harry murmurs. Draco looks at him again. Now you're getting it, Potter, he says. When Harry wakes up, there's a rectangle of plastic in his hand. Draco's license. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Harry gets his provisional license on the 31st of October. He flews to Astoria's house, having officially been linked into her flu network, and shows Matthew. The photo looks terrible, he observes, and Matthew laughs. Rite of passage. Everyone's first license looks awful. At least you can legally drive now, he adds. Harry's graduated from the driveway to actual roads, as the country lanes surrounding Astoria's home are generally bereft of traffic. I could try one of the main roads, Harry says excitedly. Don't get ahead of yourself, mate. You still can't focus on using the indicator without taking your foot off the accelerator. Multitasking is difficult when you're going 60 miles an hour, Harry retorts. Yeah, and it'll be worse when you get in an accident because you spent 15 minutes carefully hunting for the indicator switch. Nevertheless, when they begin the driving lesson, Matthew lets Harry try the main road and, as Harry hits a long stretch of straight road and needs no assistance, Matthew asks about Draco. Found much yet? Nothing. Everything seems to go in circles. Well, best of luck. I mean, it's been 3 years anyway, and watch out, you're coasting to the left a little. Let's face it, not much of chance of finding new clues. Well, I'm hoping to find something. Speaking of finding things, you wouldn't happen to know of a good mechanic, would you? I know of a few in Exeter. I'll look up their details when I get home. Now, turn left at this intersection. I feel like you're ready to brave the motorway. I hope you're joking. Matthew grins. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Harry arrives home at 11 o'clock that night, smiling and thinking how he'll share the news with Ginny. He can legally drive. He's got a car license, provisional, of course, but by the end of the year he might even have a full license. It seems important somehow. A milestone. Ginny hasn't even noticed his driving lessons and... He steps into the bedroom and his smile fades a little. Ginny's not there, although there's a note on her pillow. He picks it up. Sorry, forgot to say this morning, got a 2-day strategies workshop in Leeds. Be back Thursday. Love you, see you soon. Harry stares at the note for a second, then sets it aside. He stands for a long moment, thinking, then slowly turns to the 2 boxes stacked next to his bedside table and removes the disillusionment charm. He may as well work then. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 2 hours later, Harry's sitting in the middle of the bed, the objects scattered around him like autumn leaves. A prefect's badge catches the lamplight and shines brightly. An origami rose lays upon a cushion. Harry, long ago forgetting the purpose of the task and becoming absorbed in tiny details, finds himself poring over the Hogwarts textbooks. Draco wrote in them. Little notes, scribbled in the margins, from the very first standard book of spells, grade 1 to advanced potion making. It's strange. Harry had always assumed Draco to be irritatingly arrogant and unbearably smug about classwork, but the first-year textbooks reveal pages and pages of notes painstakingly written in the childish hand of an 11-year-old. Draco had recorded every step and, it seems to Harry, had been fearful of misfiring a spell or using incorrect technique. It's strange seeing how Draco's handwriting changes over the years. The carefully rounded letters soon give way to a lopsided look and, towards 6th year, the writing develops into a strong and graceful script. There's little asides dotted throughout the pages. Merlin's beard, this is boring, Draco has written in a herbology textbook, abruptly cutting off his extensive notes about a 17th tulip. Even more surprising is the frank admission in advanced potion-making. On a page about the uses of beetle eggs, Draco has written, I don't even care about this subject anymore. Strange that Draco would write such thoughts in his textbooks. But Harry realizes, who else could he have confided in? Towards the end of their time at Hogwarts, it became clear Draco didn't trust even his closest friends. And certainly, he couldn't confide in his parents, both of whom were equally troubled as him. It must have been lonely. And Harry knows that loneliness well. Harry turns the pages of Standard Book of Spells, grade 6. Every now and again, there's an elaborate Celtic knot, but Harry doesn't assign that any meaning. It seems Draco was fond of simply practicing the patterns during especially boring classes. There's a few notes here and there, written neatly in the margins. Spell didn't work when attempted to cast on self, Draco's written on one page. Harry frowns and reads the title of the spell. Tranquillo Charm, apparently used to calm people and lessen fear or anxiety. He shuts the book and stares down at the cover for a long time. There's no 7th-year books. Draco hadn't returned to Hogwarts after the war to complete his schooling, then. Harry leans across the bed and pulls Draco's notebook towards him. It's a 2003 calendar and diary, filled with neatly written but mundane dates. Weekly withdrawals from Gringotts, scheduled in like clockwork, a reminder to renew his car registration. The final note was written on the day Draco disappeared. Visit family solicitor, 4:30 p.m. No doubt the errand Draco had planned to complete after purchasing the owl. Nevertheless, it might be worth asking the solicitor about the purpose of Draco's visit, if the solicitor can recall it. Harry flips through the rest of the notebook, but the pages beyond September 9th are all blank and his name. He stares at the page. November 21st. A date apparently selected at random. Potter. I believe you have property which is rightfully mine. The words are quickly crossed out. A draft of a letter, Harry realizes, for just beneath it, Draco attempts a second approach. Dear Potter. I believe you are currently in possession of a hawthorn wand, unicorn haircore. Crossed out again. A third attempt, a fourth. The fifth attempt demonstrates a degree of annoyance and begins in a willful scrawl. Potter, give me back my wand. It's not like you're using it anyway. You probably don't even bother with wands anymore. Frankly, I'm waiting for you to ascend the 9th plane and become an anthropomorphic mass of pure energy. Next headline in the Daily Prophet, Savior Potter now classified as new planet. Harry can't help but grin. It's quite funny, really. Adding to the amusement is a small drawing Draco did, presumably of Planet Harry. He's drawn a Saturn-esque planet wearing a pair of spectacles. Harry laughs and turns the page, half hoping to find another amusing drawing, but instead finds more writing. The letter continues, apparently. Do you remember when we were 11? Let's go back to that. The words roll across Harry's mind like waves breaking. He blinks, his smile fading, and begins reading again. Do you remember when we were 11? Let's go back to that. I'll throw remembrals into the sky and you can try to catch them. Sometimes I think you can just keep my wand. I think of all the dark spells I performed, all the unforgivables I tried to cast with it. But then I remember when I was 11 years old, learning lumos and casting mending charms, and it's hard to let go of that. So give me my wand, or give me a time turner. Harry has no doubt that Draco, in a peak of frustration after trying to pen a suitably formal letter, wrote this particular message with the intention that it would never be read by anyone, ever, let alone Harry himself. There's a strange honesty and directness in the letter, and Harry finds it difficult to imagine Draco, with his cold expressions and inability to express himself beyond childish insults, wrote it. Then he remembers Draco wearing precisely the sort of cold expression Harry is imagining as he told Astoria to go deliver her father's eulogy. Yes, Draco hides his thoughts and feelings well, cloaking them beneath apathy and arrogance. Do you remember when we were 11? Let's go back to that. Harry's heart suddenly aches for all of them. Hermione and Ron, so unknowing of what lay ahead, Neville who would one day be tortured by Death Eaters, and yes, even Draco, who had clearly dreamed of a different future. This is still Malfoy, he reminds himself, but Malfoy, sneering, self-indulgent Malfoy, is hard to remember, as if the years have sifted away like fine sand, and now all he knows is Draco, who always looks serious and sad. Who wears a silver snitch clasp because an incepto finus est, who tries to fix himself by writing letters he'll never send, who drives everywhere, looking for something. Looking for himself, or maybe a memory. Maybe after all this time, he's just looking for a state of mind. Harry packs up the possessions one by one. The origami rose, which looks old and tattered and makes him wonder why Draco kept it. The textbooks, with 6 years' worth of notes and drawings. The school tie, the prefect badge. Had Draco been proud of being a prefect? Or had he come to view the badge as he did his wand, as a bittersweet memory, a reminder of what he'd done and what he could have been? That night he dreams. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's nighttime. The stars are high and clear above him, crisply white like winter's first snow. He's standing on the edge of a cliff, staring out at waves rolling in like low thunder, breaking against the cliff face and sending sea foam whirling around the darkly gleaming rocks. He turns. Draco stands beside him, staring out across the sea. This isn't a pensive memory, Harry says slowly. He expects to be ignored, but he's startled when Draco turns to look at him. You're here again, he says. Again? I've never been here. Harry doesn't know how else to respond. I thought it was a dream last time in the car when I saw you. Harry's blood runs cold. That was a dream. This is a dream too. These are my memories, Potter. This is real. September 5th, 2003. I drove to the Cornish coast. Truro, Harry says suddenly. Draco turns away from him again, gazing into the dark waves of the Celtic Sea. Past Truro. I wanted to see where the land ended. I drove to Helston and parked at the lighthouse. Harry looks around, but there's no lighthouse. There's nothing. Not even a window of light from a house or distant headlights. Only the half-moon overhead illuminates the scene, casting a faint glow over the ocean. And then I walked, Draco says. What, out along the cliffs? At midnight? 3 a.m, to be exact. Draco glances at Harry. You have to find me, Potter. This is my last chance. I don't know why it's you, of all people, turning up in my memories. The thundering of the waves against the cliff seems to intensify. Harry shifts slightly. It feels like the earth is beginning to tremble. I'm investigating your case, Harry says, raising his voice over the roar of the waves. The edge of the cliff is beginning to crumble into the sea and he stumbles backwards. I'm trying to find you. Where are you? If this is real, tell me. Draco opens his mouth, but the cliffs are crumbling, falling away like sandcastles, and the terrifying darkness of the storm-wild waves reaches up to eclipse Harry. He wakes with a painful rush of adrenaline, a cry half buried in his throat. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I swear I'm telling the truth. Hermione glances up at him as he paces around her kitchen. Then she returns her doubtful gaze to the cup of tea sitting before her on the table. You dreamed of Malfoy? And he told you he went to Helston? Yes, Harry says with frustration. He said the memories were real, that they weren't dreams, and I needed to find him. Maybe you should have asked Malfoy where he is, then, Hermione says, and Harry's not sure whether she's teasing him or not. I tried, and the dream literally fell apart. Harry paces along the kitchen again, his cup of tea on the counter slowly going cold. It happened before. I dreamed of a memory and spoke to him, but Draco seemed different then. Sort of abstract. Like he thought the whole thing was a dream, too, and he was just going along with it. But this time, he seemed surprised I was there. He asked me questions. He seemed more real somehow. He looks up and catches Hermione's eye. You think I'm mental, don't you? Hermione says nothing for a long moment. Then she takes a long sip of her tea. You've had dreams of real events before, Harry. That stops his pacing. He whips around. That was different. That was legilimens and dark magic, he says, his voice low and angry, and Hermione sighs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I trust you to tell the difference between a normal dream and a different one. Harry's anger fades. Oh, he says. Listen, I've got to go to work. I've got a meeting with the head of magical creatures, but... Hermione pauses. Maybe Malfoy was telling you his location in that dream. You think he's in Helston? Hermione pauses again. From what you said, the cliffs were treacherous. Harry blinks and flinches, like she struck him. He didn't go missing in Cornwall, he went missing in London. Well, you haven't yet ruled out that he left of his own accord. Maybe he wanted to do something and didn't want to hurt his family. Realization hits Harry. No, he says. No, Hermione. He wouldn't have done that. Do you think he was depressed at all? Hermione asks gently. He wouldn't have done that, Harry repeats adamantly. Hermione looks at him for a long moment. Well, I'd better be going, she says at last. Let me know if you have any new leads. I will. She finishes her tea and quickly scurries to the kitchen hearth, throwing a handful of powder into the flames and fluengi to the ministry. Harry slowly walks to the still green flames and flees away, arriving in Astoria and Matthew's fireplace. Time for his next driving lesson. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. He drives around another corner, watching the rain-slicked road ahead. The windscreen wipers flick across the windshield in an almost soothing rhythm. Watch your speed, Matthew says. Harry eases off the accelerator slightly. The autumn rains are becoming more frequent and are leaving an icy chill over the land, like a warning of winter's frosts. They're in the final week of November, and London is already full of festivity. Christmas lights line Oxford Street, and Hyde Park's winter wonderland is filled with excited children and bundled-up tourists. Out here, in East Devon, the signs are more subtle. The smell of mince pies and gingerbread waft from the local bakeries, and the sweet shops are lined with bonbons and pastel-colored sugar mice. As Harry drives along the main road of a village, he sees the strings of fairy lights decorating homes and, every now and again, a carefully decorated Christmas scene in a shop window. East Devon doesn't get much snow, does it? Harry asks. Matthew shakes his head. Not really. Our winters are quite mild. Harry slows down as a cat runs across the road, thinking of Godric's Hollow and all the lights twinkling in the snow. The only Christmas he ever truly spent at home, and suddenly he misses it more than anything. You know what, Matthew says, I think you're nearly ready for the practical. I've only been driving for a couple of months, Harry says doubtfully. You've picked it up quite quickly, though. The only thing that really needs work is your parallel parking. And sometimes your 3-point turns become 5-point turns. Matthew laughs. I'll never get parallel parking right, Harry mutters. Sometimes he's been tempted to use space-squeezing charms, but so far he's resisted the urge. We'll focus on that this week, and then I reckon you can book yourself in, Matthew says. Harry drives back Astoria and Matthew's home for the usual routine, a butterbeer or two in front of the roaring fire while Harry regales Matthew with stories of the wizarding world. Matthew seems to be quite fascinated with dragons. They're great big bloody fire breathers. How do you hide that from muggles for thousands of years? He demands as Harry leans back in the comfortable armchair. Oh, there's all sorts of charms. And if worst comes to worst, you can always obliviate a muggle if they've seen something they shouldn't, Astoria says, arriving with a bowl of roasted chestnuts. Obliviate? Remove the memory, Astoria says. Matthew frowns. That's not right. I don't think you should mess with people's heads like that. It's not good for them, surely. Harry half listens to Astoria and Matthew bicker. From Matthew's words about messing with people's heads, his thoughts flow like a river until he's recalling his earlier conversation with Hermione. He'd been able to forget it for an hour or so while he was driving, but now it sits in his head like a heavy rock. Had Draco been depressed? He always looked so distant in the memories. He'd walk through a shop or drive a car or speak to Astoria, but he wasn't really there. Harry recognizes something in Draco's face, the angular lines, as if his former self was being chiseled away, or the distant look in his eyes. Distance. Draco covered a lot of distance, Harry's sure, but he somehow never bridged the distance between past and present. Do you remember when we were 11? Let's go back to that. You look thoughtful, Astoria observes suddenly. Harry looks up and tries to smile. Just thinking, he says lightly. I just thought, Draco wasn't on any potions, was he? Or charms? Astoria frowns, looking confused. No. Why? Is it important? He took an anti-pain potion sometimes, when he had a headache, but that's all. Right, Harry says. Just wondering, that's all. If Draco had been taking something for depression, surely Astoria would know. He changes the subject quickly. I'm visiting the Malfoy family solicitor tomorrow. Draco had an appointment with him. That's strange, Astoria says, pausing to eat a chestnut. Is it? Harry says sharply. Yes. The solicitor only really deals with Narcissa. Harry frowns and stands up, realizing it's later than he thought. He farewells Astoria and Matthew and flees to the apartment, grateful to find Ginny still hasn't returned from practice. He wants some time alone. Time to think. He sits at the island counter and stares unseeingly at the patterns in the granite. Draco wouldn't have done that, he'd told Hermione. Not Draco, who was unbearably stubborn. He'd tried for an entire year to fix that damn vanishing cabinet, and even when the stupid prat had been pointing a wand at Dumbledore, hand shaking, a look of complete terror in his eyes. He still hadn't admitted he couldn't complete Voldemort's task. Harry remembers that split second before the Death Eaters arrived, when Draco began to lower his wand as Dumbledore offered a different path. Maybe Draco would have conceded defeat after all. Harry stands up and walks to the sliding door, pulling it open and stepping out onto the balcony. The apartment seems suffocating somehow, as if it's closing in on him. Outside, the air is crisp and Harry shivers, drawing his cloak closer around himself. It's chillier here than in East Devon. There'll be fog over the Thames tomorrow morning, he'll wager. He watches the trains come and go, and that night he doesn't dream.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!